Hello. Today is Saturday, January 23rd, and we will be looking at the 23rd chapter of Genesis. After a heavy theological chapter in 22, the priestly voice is present throughout the chapter of 23 to tell the story of Sarah's death and burial. This is not a very remarkable chapter, theologically or even inspiration wise. Sarah dies and Abraham needs to bury her, and he is an alien in the land, and so he goes to the Hittites and asks for a space to bury Sarah, and they oblige him. He gets connected with the right person. He ends up paying 400 silver shekels for the piece of land with a cave on it, and then this will be the land where it's considered sacred that Sarah was buried, and then the whole family it'll be the family burial plot. The main function of this, especially from the priestly voice, is to establish holy ground and make known that this area that is referenced in this chapter is to be sacred ground and sort of purchased and borrowed and taken from the Hittites and made into holy Hebrew ground, significant of the covenant because land was a very important part of the identity of the Hebrew people. So that's the extent of it, though. There's nothing else in this chapter that I can see, that's like nothing that's unclear or unknown. It's someone dies and they need a place to bury their dead, because he would have buried Sarah in the family plot in where he's from, but he left there and became an alien in a foreign land, back and forth to Egypt and that kind of thing. But so he ends up in the land where the trees of Marmar, and then he asks the people there, the Hittites, can I have a place? And they were like, yes, you're a prince among us and we love you, and here's your plot and you can negotiate with this fella. And they figured that out, and it belongs to them now. So there's no conflict or anything else going on there. It can be a chapter, if you're reading it from your own perspective, to remind you of burying your own family members, trying to make those arrangements. In that regard, I do have a lot to say about it, because I feel as a pastor very, very called to work with families that have lost a loved one. Everyone said, "Oh, well, you should be a chaplain with hospice," and I said, "Well, that's really shepherding people through the transition, and I feel like that's a special calling too, but maybe it's not mine. Youth ministry is a special call, all kinds of special callings, but I feel very called to work with families that are like, for example, when my parishioners lose a family member, I wish they would call me and say, Pastor, grandpa's died or mom's died or whatever it is, can you come with us to the funeral home? Because I've done a lot of funerals and I've been around, the good and the bad and the wonderful and the amazing and the not so focused on people's emotions or families or what's going on. Funeral homes are different. They are, and funeral directors are different. And some are wonderful and some are not so. And I'm sort of like a side hobby of mine is reading about funeral homes and funeral directors, and maybe someday I might be involved in that industry somehow. I just care about when your loved one dies and you have to make the hardest phone call of your life, which is even if the hospital say to you, okay, what do you want to do with they'll say the remains, and there's so many decisions to make and there's so many technical things going on with that around death, and you're in grief and you shouldn't have to be walking that road alone. So I just wish that the parishioners would call me when somebody dies and say, can you come with us and I'll meet you at the funeral home. Let me help you walk through this. I've been there, I've been doing it with folks, and it's hard to make decisions in grief, and that's kind of where I'm thinking Abraham is at this point. He has to do all this negotiating, and he just lost his beloved wife. I mean, maybe this is a different cultural understanding of love and loss, but he has to make all these arrangements in this chapter. So maybe there is something else. I thought, man, 23 is a dud. There's nothing controversial or interesting to talk about, but I would encourage you all that are listening, no matter what age you are or what stage you are in life, to make plans so that you have a little bit of input on what happens to you when you go. I mean, I have my plans made, and I've vocalized them to my family members. Maybe because I'm of the industry that I'm in, not the industry, I shouldn't say that, but like the job I do is, pretty much work with people and do a lot of funerals. Funerals are, this is a weird thing to say, my favorite thing that I do as a pastor. I know that sounds weird, like, oh, don't you love weddings? Weddings are a little bit of a pain in the butt, to be honest with you. Weddings are... they're hectic, they're, distant. I'm just that person that's there to sign the paper and organize the rehearsal, maybe, because there's always these people you can hire to do all this stuff. So for me personally, unless it's my friend, so I was talking to my girlfriend the other day, and she's single, and I was saying, how much I like funerals because of the intimacy you get with the families, and just I just feel called to work with people who are, going through grief and bereaved. And she said, I said, but wait, I would love your wedding and hate your funeral. But it's not that I like the ideas of people dying, but I, as a pastor, being involved in folks' life, and other pastors understand that too. Weddings can be just so, like, they're more worried about the caterer and the bartender and the flowers than they are about the officiant, it doesn't matter, But when you're in a funeral situation, you need words of comfort. You need somebody to sit next to you and just hold your hand, if that's all. I mean, that's kind of what God does with us, right? God knows what it's like to lose a family member, right? So Jesus on the cross. That's just where where I feel called. So there's me coming out of my closet there about how I feel about that. If you're interested in that at all, I would recommend to you to read, now I've forgotten the guy's name, I can reference it, but it's a book, Confessions of a Funeral Director, and it was just almost life-changing. Read it in just kind of one sitting, and thought it was a really good thing to read. What's his last name? Can't think of it, but Confessions of a Funeral Director. He has a blog, and then he wrote this book based on the blog of his just experience, and so much compassion and love and theological understanding that he has directed towards working with families that are in grief. Also, I like the Netflix series The Casketeers, which is a docudrama about this cute family that are a funeral director and his family and the employees there. There's one that's just a wonderfully compassionate, excellent person. You see her at action with the families, and I'm just, it's kind of funny and cute, and it's all set in New Zealand, but anyway, I've shared too much about that. But yes, Sarah dies, and Abraham has to bury her. But tomorrow, the narratives continue, and this, I told you, is an ancestral narrative. If it's an ancestor, it has descendants. And let's read tomorrow about some of Abraham and Sarah's descendants. Have a beautiful day.